How are you? Good to see you. Program.
Thank you. He just asked me 1 minute ago to do that.
I asked him while he was standing in line waiting for eggs. And I'd like to welcome you from the Northern Dutchess Alliance and thank you all for coming out on this beautiful morning. We scheduled it right before a storm, so we knew people would be anxious to get out. We're going to start by introducing some people, and boy, if I forget you, I apologize. Maybe I should have everybody stand and say they're the VIPs. Patty Holman is here. Patty, representing Congressman Chris Gibson. Our Congressman Chris Gibson is doing great things for us, especially agriculture. We appreciate him. Let's see, Dee Dee Barrett from the New York State Assembly is here. Thank you for coming. And we also have Mr. Gibson, Terry Gibson from the New York State Senate. Okay, we had Mark Molinaro coming and his assistant, but they canceled yesterday. So we've got a few county department people here. I'm not going to introduce you all, but thank you all for coming. How's that? Town supervisors. Let's see here. I guess we've got Virginia Stern from Stanford is here. Let's see, Ed Flood canceled, and we've got, is Sue Crane here yet? No. All right, and Aileen Rohrer from Hyde Park? Aileen. A-I-L-E-E-N, Aileen. I've made that mistake twice now. The third time I'll have to pay. Okay, Brian Crenna, the mayor of the village of Tivoli. Here, Brian. Let's see. Who else am I missing here? Any other mayors here? Ed Bundell, yes. Okay. All right. Richard Perkins, Northern Dutchess legislator. Let's see. How am I doing? I'm sorry. Oh. Let me find. Go ahead. Stand up. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't see your name highlighted here. Okay. Any other town board members or village board members? Joel Tyner. Oh, Joel Tyner, legislator. Yes, Joel, thank you. And Blaylock. Oh, okay. Hey, I've never met you. How about that? We need to talk. Okay, well, anybody else that I've missed, I'm sorry. It's kind of this list has been changed 30 times in the last 2 hours. So, but I hope you enjoy your breakfast. We'll give you just a few moments, and then we'll start with the program. Thank you. This is a study sponsored by the Northern Dutchess Alliance with a grant from the Greenway. And I'd like to thank them for that. And we've hired CREO, the Center for Research, Regional Education and Outreach, to do a study for us on Northern Dutchess towns to see how we could and where we could share services. So Professor Gerald Benjamin from New Paltz is here, and some of his staff, and you're going to give a short report on what we have. Now remember, we don't have 50 minutes, Professor. We got like 20 minutes, and then because you had to be back, right? Speak into the mic so we can hear you.
Actually, 20 minutes is 4 times as much time as you told me yesterday.
Let's go back to 5 then.
I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be here at the initiative of an organization devoted to regional collaboration. As in the stressful times we all are experiencing in local government and state government in New York, with diminished resources, capped resources, increased demands for services, increased costs, and so on, collaboration is one approach to delivering local government that promises to provide some economies through efficiency while maintaining service levels. So having an organization that anticipates this need and has been existing for a long time and is working toward these ends, sponsor a gathering of local officials to talk about collaboration, think about it, and act on it is, to me, an extraordinary opportunity, and we're grateful to have the opportunity. Now, a little bit about our organization. We were established a little under 5 years ago to advance the mission of the university to serve the communities of the Hudson Valley. And some of you who've studied in public institutions or even independent institutions know that it's a fundamental role of universities to do public service. The primary mission, of course, is education, and we think we do that very well. And we invite you to our campus so that you can make a citizen observation of our performance and visit our museums, theaters, and other facilities. But we didn't think we were doing this aspect of our public service as well as we might. So we established a unit to do that, and we do studies, sometimes sponsored, sometimes independently initiated, to provoke public discourse on matters of public concern, to advance what we think we're doing is advancing the public interest. So I've brought some examples of our studies that are not about Dutchess County, in addition to the one I'm going to talk about today, and I invite you to pick them up and take them away. We've written about what we think are some of the key issues having to do with education mandates, water resource management and development as an economic and an environmental resource. Hunger in Ulster County, we're following with a paper on food deserts in Poughkeepsie. Josh is working on that. My colleague Josh is working on that. So that's the advertising. Now I'm at a little bit of disadvantage because I've got these new eyeglasses, and I decided that those graduated eyeglasses, you know, just didn't suit me. So now I've got 2 pairs of eyeglasses, one for reading and one for seeing. And unfortunately, I have the seeing ones with me. So we're going to see how this works. Okay, so our mission was to find areas for collaboration that would enhance efficiencies in the region. We had 14 jurisdictions, 4 villages, and 10 towns, defined by the Northern Dutchess Alliance to look at. We had a focus group of invited public officials, essentially a meeting where we talked about what we should study, because we couldn't study everything. And I should say in passing that we have identified opportunities beyond the ones we've discussed in detail in this study that we can and will talk to Northern Dutchess about, as there are other opportunities. But we couldn't study everything in depth. It was just not possible. So as a consequence of this meeting, we were advised to focus in 3 areas. One, the assessment function, which is a town function. The villages don't do it. These villages don't do it. In other communities, villages sometimes still do it. The highways function and medical care costs. That is the provision of that benefit for public employees, what that costs. We proceeded by visiting almost all the towns and villages, and talking to the chief elected officer, sometimes talking to other people, so we felt that if we visited people at home, we'd have a comfortable relationship with them. We collected budget information from the communities, and we used databases available to us from the New York State Comptroller's Office. As you all have a requirement to report your financials annually to the Comptroller's Office, there is a comparative database that's accessible. We also had very good cooperation from Dutchess County, and I'm very pleased to report that, from the Real Property Office, from the Public Works Department, and from the County Executive's Office, and also in informal conversations with the county legislature. So I was impressed and encouraged by the responsiveness of people for calls to calls for information, and their willingness to consider alternative modalities for service delivery and governance in this county. And so the first point to make is that the door is open if people are willing to walk through it. Regarding assessment, in addition, as I was on an advisory committee some years ago to the state on assessment practices, I had some relationships with real property officers, so we called around the state to find out what might be best practices. So we made that set of inquiries by telephone. Assessment is you have a summary of the report here, and I'm not going to go into the detail of the report. We've also filed a multi-page, about a 40-page document with the Northern Dutchess Alliance. It's going to be on their website. It's going to be on our website. You can see it and print it. And we also did one other thing. We surveyed local governments as to the nature of their health insurance contracts. So we had a web-based survey, and we're publishing the result as an appendix to the study, so you can see that. And I think we did quite a thorough job that can be extended beyond the immediate communities. So that's a professor's discussion of methodology, and you're very gracious to listen to it. So we're going to talk about outcomes, and then I'm going to take questions. Approaches to collaboration and assessment are insufficiently understood. People often think that the alternatives are to qualify for a program called the Coordinated Assessment Program that the state has and that some jurisdictions participate in, not this part of the county, but in other parts of this county. Or they think that shifting assessment would be better done at the county level than at the town level or in the town and village level. Many of the communities here don't meet the conditions for the coordinated assessment program set out by the state. The jurisdictions must maintain the same uniform percentage of value and equalization rate to be in that program. They also have to have appointed assessors. Now, half the jurisdictions in Northern Dutchess do not have appointed assessors, and some don't. Proximate jurisdictions don't assess at the same fraction of at full value or the same partial assessment level. So this is a limited opportunity available to some but not all jurisdictions. Switching assessment to the county level is massively difficult politically, as it requires a referendum under the New York State Constitution with multiple majorities. So countywide assessment is present in New York. There are two examples. Some say three. I know of two for sure. But counties recently have tried to do that, have not succeeded. But there are two options that are available and that are attractive. One is towns contracting with counties to do the assessment function on a per parcel basis, with counties providing the service. And we found one county, I think Schuyler County in New York, where all the towns but one are contracting with the county, so effectively the county is doing the assessment. But the town is retaining the legal locus of responsibility. The question comes, can you do this in a cost-effective way, a way that would be less expensive for the towns and no additional expense, holding the county harmless. And the argument might be that that what's possible in Western New York or Northern New York, where cost of living and personnel costs are lower, would not be possible in this part of New York. But in fact, the assessor in the real property office in Orange County is doing this now, is entering into contracts with some of its towns to provide the assessment function at a cost that's attractive to the town governments and acceptable to the county government. And I talked to him about this, and the assessor there is doing this by the use of part-time personnel who are trained in assessment in a real estate market that's not offering them much opportunity, so they're willing to work for the county. Now the question is, how long can you sustain that if the economy gets better? So, but it is being done, and it is an attractive, potentially attractive option. And I have talked to the county is change-oriented now, and I've talked to the county officials about this. They haven't said they think it's a good idea, but they certainly have been talking to us about it. Another alternative that's intriguing that we discovered in Western New York, Chautauqua County, is that, and there are at least two good examples, is that one town becomes essentially the assessing agent for a group of towns. So by intermunicipal agreement, towns will say, okay, we'll pick one of our jurisdictions, and we will pay them at a per parcel rate to do the assessment in our community. And there are examples of as many as 8 towns and villages, and usually it's towns, it's on rare occasions villages still. 8 towns have contracted one single town to do the assessment for the 8 towns. Now, and that requires, there's no preconditions to that. In other words, the precondition is that the towns have to agree. But there, unlike the state CAP program, there are no structural requirements, no administrative requirements. State CAP program has an incentive, a financial incentive, but I'm told by assessors that the money is not flowing. So this, the financial, and I haven't called the real property office and the tax department in New York to find out what their point of view is on that. But this option is interesting. Now, interestingly enough, I'm past 5 minutes. You might have noticed that, and I'm not going to get to 50 minutes because I value my life. So, I think that the key to this option is to have somebody really good available who's willing to provide leadership. And in both cases, in those 2 cases where 6 and 8 towns, and this is all in the report in detail with organization charts and draft intergovernmental agreements as appendices, there was a person who was president of the New York State Association of Assessors in that place who was willing to take leadership and show the opportunity to adjacent communities, and was trusted by his colleagues to be effective and somebody you could put faith in. Now, there's one caveat that I want to mention before going on. The reports that we're making are often said to be put on a shelf. It's not my job to take this down off the shelf. It's my job to turn this over to you, and it's your job to take it off the shelf. So the recommendations that I'm making here are up to you, but this qualifies as an option that localities can do without anybody else authorizing. I'm not endorsing it as better than the county contracting option, but it's available. On transportation, Josh is the great expert. This is the major cost center in most local governments, most rural local governments, and certainly among the top 2 in places that have a police department. Some of you may know there's a keen competition to determine who spends more money, the highway department or the police department. And of course, there are structural challenges because the highway superintendents in towns are elected. So a lot of progress depends on the willingness of elected officials to work collaboratively with each other and with town boards to be in a good relationship with an elected official and another elected official in the town. And we found that, of course, we have a tape recorder on, you wonder sometimes, but we found that everybody was reporting wonderful relationships. Except in one instance, then we turned the recorder off for that instance. These interviews, by the way, are confidential and non-attributed in the report. We don't name anybody unless they have agreed, and we said that we wanted to get this information to use it for a good purpose and not to embarrass anybody or upset anybody or create any kind of political discomfort. There's a lot of collaboration going on now, formal and informal, equipment sharing, and so on, helping out on days where one place has a special need and another place has available resources. Leadership was of two minds about this. At least one town supervisor told us that he was very chary of informal relationships because of liability concerns. There are also relationships between towns and villages, as it appears obvious to elected officials that this is a good idea. We also identify that the task before villages is much different because of the density of the roads in villages as compared to towns. So we talk a lot about the county contract. We talk a little bit about the county's practice of contracting for plowing some county roads. We think there's opportunity for increased savings in that area. We were in a preliminary presentation of this report, we were told that in fact the county had diminished its involvement with some towns in the current year, and so we didn't know that, and that happened. That happened apparently after we had gathered our information, because the county certainly expressed a willingness to consider further additional contracting. So I think what's needed here is that the county has to consider its criteria, which are published for contracting, and it also has to consider its price structure, which is based upon state guidelines, according to our inquiry. Now, Josh is, who's sitting back there, making sure I get this right, is an expert at mapping. And what he did was take the furthest distance, so I get this right, Josh, put one point of the compass at the highway garage of each town, put the other point of the compass at the most distant location at the town border, and drew a circle for every town. So we identified areas of potential collaboration between towns where these circles overlapped. He then looked at roads that we know that town and village boundaries were established in the 19th century for the most part, and aren't particularly rational in contemporary times in terms of maintenance, operation, and so on. And so we identified areas of potential collaboration beyond those that already exist, where towns might want to get other towns, do trades to get other towns to do some of their roads, or where towns might want to contract with adjacent towns to do their roads in the same manner as the county, they contract with the county to do their roads. And we have a number of specific examples named by Josh, who's a native of this county, who grew up almost next door here, right? In Tivoli, where we suggest that towns might want to look at more collaboration. There are also areas where we think that villages can do some work for towns where the geography of the village suggests that it might be better at it than the towns would be, and do it at lower cost. And that's all detailed in the report. So the report's quite specific. We also identify areas where capital projects are being considered by salt sheds and so on, are being considered by towns where collaboration with the county might save both of them some money towns might provide a location, the county might do some of the capital costs, and we've inquired of the county, and they said they're willing to give consideration to that idea. So that door is open. Now, regarding health insurance, this is a national problem, so we thought we'd solve it here. No, we document the increase in costs. You all know about the increase in costs. We talk about who gets insured. So I was on a state commission some year, going back now 4 or 5 years ago, and we expressed some concern about retired workers and public officials getting full coverage from local governments of health insurance without paying anything, which was a practice in New York. We did not find that here. We did not find that here. There are some elected officials covered by health insurance programs. Often they're full-time workers, like heads of highway departments. And there are occasions where people who are part-time workers are covered, but part-time workers and elected officials who are covered pay substantially for that coverage. So it's not the problem that it is in general somewhere else in New York. By the way, I should mention that we have specific data on each specific town. So when you look at and we're making our database open, so we might say that the cost per parcel of assessment in one town is this amount, and the cost per parcel in that is that amount, and the average is that amount. And it's okay to make these comparisons, but you got to remember you're not always comparing apples to apples, because towns have different kinds of property bases and different kinds of exemption circumstances and so on. So the caveat's in there, the data's in there, it's yours to have and use, but we recommend that we have a conversation about comparability if you're going to use this data. We try to be careful. We compare unionized to non-unionized workforces. We get the unionized workforces. All towns insure their full-time workers, union and non-union. The differences between the coverage of union and non-union are specified. Places with unions have contracts that cost a little more than places without unions. The differences are not enormous. There's a little bit less coverage for workers in non-union jurisdictions. The larger jurisdictions are unionized, and we give the costs and so on. Now, the major point here, every place is trying to keep their insurance contracts in hand by changing the nature of the contract. So there are a lot of points of difference between the contracts. You know, what the deductible is. Is the locality willing to pay part of the cost so they can get a higher deductible and a lower rate for their insurance? What kind of health programs to encourage healthy life practices are there, and how that will affect your insurance? So we detail about 8 or 10 different strategies that localities have used at one time or another in one place or another, and we got the list of strategies from a national study. So we think we've been pretty inclusive, and you can look at that and see if in your negotiation with your union or in your consideration of insurance for your workforce, you've taken up all the potential or most of the potential options. But we think the real helpful thing that can happen, putting aside what President Obama will do or Governor Cuomo might do or the legislature might do, we think that the real helpful potential opportunity is to improve the bargaining power of local governments by joining them together in the purchase of health insurance. And the study I made reference to, the state study where I was on the commission, talked about this and the need for a change in state law, and that change in state law has occurred, and Tompkins County has a municipal health care consortium that we reported to us in its first year saved $750,000 for the localities that have participated in it. Not all the localities in Tompkins County have participated in it. And interestingly, the savings are greatest for the smallest places, which you would imagine would be the case because they have the least bargaining power outside of a consortium. And I know that and this is another point I'm reminded of, that we shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. In other words, if we can start up a consortium and not everybody wants to get into it, well, let them decide to get into it when they're ready. As long as we have the capacity to do that, we should, in my judgment, move forward. And in Tompkins County, what's interesting is that after the consortium started, other places came in a little bit at a time till it's almost everybody in the county, every jurisdiction in the county has joined. And the premise of the consortium was that it would not diminish coverage for any worker who was already covered in a jurisdiction coming in. So the costs were reduced without coverage being reduced. Enhanced coverage for a worker would cost more and does cost more. So they've got some experience, they've got a reported success, and we've got a county executive who's thinking about this and has apparently started a conversation about it, although I have not. I was hoping to see him today so I could talk to him a little more about this to find out how far they've gotten. And so what we suggested, the guy in Tompkins County who's the head of this is somebody we know, so we suggested that we'd invite him here and that the Northern Dutchess Alliance sponsor his with CREO sponsor his visit to this part of Dutchess County. And I've asked Josh to talk today to some county officials about joining in sponsorship. Also, I think that the survey we did, which some of you responded to, should be administered throughout the county, so we can see how other local governments respond. And we would reopen the survey so places that didn't respond, that we tried to get response from in this part of the county, could come in and give us the data, so we'd have a richer database and a more compelling basis for action, because the more inclusive you are, the more you can convince other people that you know what you're talking about, and you can create a basis for going ahead. So those are the three main areas. These are the three things we found, the three sets of recommendations. I think in each area there's a potential or action. The action can be by collaboration between two governments, among large numbers of governments, between the county and localities within the county, or the county and all its localities. What's needed is leadership and will. I think that you have the leadership. Now you have to generate the will. So thank you for your attention. I'll take questions. Thank you.
Got time for one or two quick questions?
The town of Rhinebeck didn't respond in time to be included in this survey, which I think is a great shame. Can we rectify that at this point? Can I request the survey data and get it back to you so we can at least contribute to?
Are you talking about the healthcare part or the whole thing?
I think the whole thing.
Well, the study's closed, so it's hard for me to say I don't want to know something, because it's not in my nature. Which reminds me of a couple of jokes which I won't tell. The answer is we included Rhinebeck when we could from general information. So if we had information from and we included all jurisdictions, whether we could meet with them or not, and some jurisdictions were reluctant, as they have they have less interest than others. I want to be fair, but less interest than others in what we were doing. And sometimes places feel, because of their history, might feel threatened. We included you where we could. We welcome more information, but we can't reopen the study. If we're going to encourage the county to follow up with a survey on the health insurance question countywide, and if we do that, it'll be reopened for that purpose.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that the county legislature, or maybe some legislators could comment on it, that they created an incentive fund for collaboration among municipalities? And what do you see could be used, that fund could be used to forward some of those?
Incentive funds always gather my attention. You may wonder why that is. I have a commitment to the president of the college to pay for my program. It was late at night, and I didn't quite know what I was doing. But anyway, so the answer is I talked to Mary Ann briefly about that, and I think the Northern Dutchess Alliance is going to look at that, and we'd be happy to be a partner in that. And we are aware of the fund, and I think that Mark Molinaro is very smart to do that, and I think that there's a chance. They're going to take one more minute. There's a chance that the relationship between towns and villages and county governments is not always a smooth and positive relationship. And there's always the concern that that one or the other is trying to displace the cost on the other one. You know, that you're really not trying to save money, you're trying to get the other guy to pay a bill. And the net for the taxpayer is zero if it's a cost shift. And so this question of and I'm not talking about the specific, but the general question of what motivates a program and an effort, and is one person trying to advance at the expense of another, is an important question and builds an environment, a non-trusting environment. So I think with regard to this initiative, we have to take the posture that this is a genuine commitment to try to get win-win outcomes, and we have to proceed on that basis. And I know in Ulster County, where we had highway cooperation that could save everybody, create revenues for the towns and save the county a lot of money, there were partisan issues, there were concerns about trust and so on. I think we have to get past that.
Okay, well, thank you, Jerry, very much. There are a few copies on the tables, not enough for everybody, but it'll be on, and their website is on here, and it'll be on our website also. You know, Jerry mentioned averages, town highway road cost. I had a professor, an economics professor at Cornell, that used to say he didn't like averages. He said, you know, it's like sitting in the kitchen and have one foot in the oven and one foot in the refrigerator, but on the average, you're okay. Okay, well, let's move on. The next item on the agenda is our business meeting, which is going to be very brief. I would like to introduce the current executive board members for the Northern Dutchess Alliance. I'm Dave Teeter. I'm the president, as past supervisor of the town of Stamford, and I also represent agriculture. Farm Bureau was one of the founding groups of this organization. Harry Colgan, who's not with us, he's ill, town board in Red Hook, he's the vice president. Ray Oberly, past Clinton supervisor, is the treasurer. Melody Moore is our secretary. Lucy Courager is our business organization representative. Lucy. Sarah Trampani is our institutions representative. She's institutions Omega. Okay. Pompey Delafield, he represents the Hyde Park Chamber, community organization rep, and he's not here. And Virginia Stern, supervisor of the town of Stamford, is our local government representative. So those are our current directors. Now, the business meeting, I guess, is going to be mostly elections. And do I have a nomination for the office of president? Well, anyway, Mary Ann, how do we handle this, Mary Ann?
We usually do the whole slate at once.
Okay, let's do the whole slate at once. Okay, by the way, there was a nominating committee, Harry, Pompey, and me. And I'm the only one here, so it sort of puts me in a bad situation. Okay, let's have a nomination for the slate of Dave Teeter as president, Harry Colgan as vice president, Ray Oberly as treasurer, Melody Moore as secretary. And I guess the other ones are our business representatives in organizational and institutional.
I nominate the slate.
All right, Virginia nominated. Is there a second? All right, Brian, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. The one thing I'm going to promise in my, since I've been elected again, you folks in this room and more people in Northern Dutchess especially, and Mark Molinaro, by the way, who was one of the founders of the Northern Dutchess Alliance, and I wanted him here today, Tom, to talk about the pot of money he has for us and for everybody when you share services. But when we were founded, Mark was very active for several years, and I miss him this morning because he could have filled in a little slot there. Okay, so but one thing they promised that this year, you people.
If you wanted some information on the municipal services grant, I can do a general overview.
Okay, Aaron, thank you.
For those who don't know me, my name is Owen Rafter. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Thankford. The municipal services shared grant is the second of two new community investment programs that the county executive and the legislature have done this year. The first one is for the contract agencies, the traditional contract agencies. That application was due on Friday. We received 32 second applications for that. We've just released the municipal services grant as a draft. What we did was release the application and guidelines for consideration and comment. We'd like to get that out, all the communities to review, look at the guidelines, see what has been proposed, issue any comments or concerns, and then the final application we anticipate being out in March. Some of the basic things we're looking for: it has to have one municipal sponsor as the lead. There could be as many partners with that, but a municipality, a government entity has to be the lead. And then it's looking at services for shared consolidation. So implementation and planning are both eligible, but we are looking at the potential for these, and it's about $2 million a month available. This is the first year. So that's a very quick, under 2-minute overview.
Thank you, Aaron. That fills us in. Good.
If anyone does have questions, feel free to my department.
We'll tell Marcus he can be replaced. Okay, thank you very much. All right, now back to the business meeting. As a newly elected president, all I'm going to say is this year, the Northern Dutchess Alliance has to work very hard on letting people know what they do. I think we sort of become an obscure organization, done a lot of great things, but there's still a lot of people who don't know about us. So we're gonna work on that this year. Okay, board? All right, award presentations. That's why a lot of you are here, and we're going to start with getting my notes from the folder.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to start with the first one, Commitment to Community Award, and that goes posthumously to Drayton Grant, a friend of many of us. Now, Drayton, I first met her back in the early 90s. We were having an environmental issue with closing our landfill, and she came and helped out very, very much, and she was right on top of it because she was Deputy Commissioner of DEC covering those things at the time. And she became a friend, as she did with lots of us. She started her law career in a city law firm in 1975. Then she became an attorney for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation from 83 and 87. And then she served as a deputy commissioner for DEC for statewide land use and conservation programs. In 1988, she became a partner in the Rhinebeck law firm of Grant and Lyons. And she practiced environmental law, I say, with a conscience and great experience. She's made a huge difference in our environment right here in the Hudson Valley. She has left us a more beautiful and environmentally sound place to live. Drayton served on many boards and committees, including the Hudson River Heritage, Hudsonia, Winnicke Land Trust, the Sloop Clearwater, and she was on the board of the Northern Dutchess Hospital. Drayton was instrumental, by the way, in the creation of Burger Hill, just south of the village on 9G. A very popular spot. She was a skier, I'm told, and a golfer, and devoted Rotarian. And she liked to have that mentioned when we introduced her, Rotary. She was proud of that. And Drayton is survived by her husband Wayne, who was here, Baden, okay, and two sons, Samuel and Nathaniel, and Nat is also here. So if I could ask you to come on up, Wayne, or members of the family, whoever's going to be with you. And perhaps perhaps you could introduce those that are here that you know. But on behalf of Drayton, we congratulate you, and I'm sorry we didn't get this done sooner.
Well, luckily it's not the Nobel Prize, which they don't give posthumously. I promise to be only slightly longer than Dr. Benjamin. You know Drayton, you know, as well as anyone outside of her family does. You know what she did. She was a wonderful community advocate. All the boards she served on, all the work she did over the years has been outlined. The nice thing about this morning is that all the names she mentioned to me over and over now have faces, which is very nice. And I do want to make special mention of Joel Tyner, whose emails consumed her inbox, and probably everyone's, and actually gave rise to an idea I had of how to save the Postal Service, which is to have a small charge for every email. See if they would continue like that. The other thing that I realized this morning is that when Dr. Benjamin was outlining this report that we now have, Drayton would have had scores of ideas that would arise out of her reading of this, and she would discuss them with me, and we would go over them, and I would have a slightly different point of view often, but not always. And we'd sharpen the discussion. And I miss that a lot. And I'm very thankful for everyone coming this morning. I probably can't speak very much more without being overcome. But thank you all, and I'm very glad I could be here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. I know it was difficult. Nat, could you introduce the folks that are in the family? And I know John Lyons, we should say he's here.
I can do that.
Okay, Wayne, okay.
This is John Lyons. This has been Drayton's partner for many, many years, almost 20 years.
Right.
This is Debbie Way,
Second.
who's been the assistant at the office. And this is Doug Struwinski, who is Jackie's father, and Nikki Struwinski, who is Jackie's mother. And Jackie is a very good friend of my son, Nat, who is sitting there. Here's Heinz Sauer, who many of you know in Rhinebeck, certainly. And this lovely lady come from Cooperstown to be here. She was, would you stand up, Sid? She was Drayton's roommate in college.
Thank you.
And they remained best of friends until Drayton died. And she told me she wouldn't have missed this for me.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you very much. And we have a lady here from Albany.
Oh, and Shirley Jones.
Shirley Jones.
Drayton, as I don't know, one of the things you didn't mention was that Drayton got involved with Shirley to help promote a activity at University of Albany to send a group of students, sociology students, social work students, to go on every year on a trip to Africa. She would hold a benefit every year. Not she would organize with others.
Yeah.
And always hoped that there would be more others. And we used to have a wonderful benefit every year, having another one in June, and would raise money and to help send these students who were very appreciative to see what was really happening in other countries, especially in Africa.
I know, I left out quite a few things, but we didn't have that much time. Well, we thank you for all of you for coming in and sharing this award with the family. Okay, next, there's an organization here in town called the Dutchess County Agricultural Society, and this award is for charting our course. And basically, let me get my notes out. I'm a member of this organization, so I didn't vote for you, Andy. I couldn't vote for you. But the Dutchess County Ag Society was formed in a hotel in Poughkeepsie in February of 1806. All right, and the first fair took place in 1809. I believe it was right on Hooker Avenue or someplace down in that area. And it moved to Washington Hollow, where the Troop K barracks is. It was a turkey farm at the time. But anyway, they became a full-time fair annually in 1842. And the fairgrounds moved to Rhinebeck and has become the largest county agricultural fair in New York State. Now, Erie County has a larger fair, but they don't have as much agriculture. And I say one of the best in the Northeast because I have been to a lot of county and state fairs that don't have the quality of fair that we have. The fairgrounds is 147 acres, straddles the town and village of Rhinebeck lines. There are 7 full-time people that work there and 75 part-time employees. But when the fair comes, 400 employees, full and part-time, are employed. So some of the things they've done for the community to receive this award, they gave $10,000 donation for mobile firefighting equipment for the Rhinebeck Fire Company. Gave $100,000 to the capital campaign of the Northern Dutchess Hospital, which won this award last year. The Ag Society also installed and maintains the helipad, which for hospital use in Chelsea, and who else wants to use it? I don't think she did. I don't think they wound up doing it. But anyway, it was ready for her. On the grounds, they housed the Rhinebeck Village Police Department for 13 years. They allow the Northern Dutchess Hospital annual fundraising gala held at the fairgrounds every year. And also they have many other organizations that have fundraisers there every year, and the fair does not charge the nonprofits. The Ag Society also provides $8,000 a year annually in scholarships, which is a good thing. And economic impact in the community. There was just a study done of the county fairs in New York State. Dutchess County generates about fairgrounds $45 million into the local economy. Now, $34.5 million of that just came from the fair, which, by the way, last year 342,244. I think that was paid attendance. No, okay, it was attendance. Anyway, it's kind of hard to figure out when people go in and out 10 times a day. Anyway, that's in the local economy, and that generated $1.4 million paid in sales taxes and other taxes. So it is really an economic generator, especially for Northern Dutchess and Rhinebeck, but also for the county and surrounding area. So to receive this award, I'd like to have Andy and Lou Ruge. Are you coming up, Andy? Lou said you could do it, but I... It's going to fit on your shelf, Andy? Oh, sure. By the way, Andy was just named the new general manager, and that was one of the smartest things your board ever did. I've known him since he started working at the fair. Great guy. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to first introduce a couple people I have here with me today. I had 3 directors, but one of them had to go to court this morning, so I would like to introduce Mr. Ruge, who you just met as our first vice president. And our immediate past president, Mr. Weckesser. on behalf of the Board of Directors, the members of the Ag Society and staff, thank you for this award. We're happy to be part of the Northern Dutchess community and look forward to remaining part of the Northern Dutchess community for years to come. So we do what most of you know is probably the largest event in the county each year. And as the folks at the 911 Center in Poughkeepsie like to call it, the largest city in Dutchess County for 6 days each year. Because it sort of just bubbles out of the ground a couple weeks before it happens. But truthfully, it takes a year to produce an event of this magnitude. It just doesn't appear overnight. So there's a lot of volunteers, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And we're actually pretty proud of what we create in that 6 days and hope that the public gets some educational quality out of that. And just an idea to give you about what kind of county fair we have in Dutchess. Venues today just released the top 50 fairs in North America, and the Dutchess County Fair was number 46. So we're pretty proud of that, and we'll continue to do what we do, and what we do best is agricultural education, and that's what the goal is, and that's where we'll continue to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. I'm proud to be a member of the Ag Society and contribute quite a bit to the fair each year. I did mention that the fair was continuous except for the 2 world wars and a lady named Irene. Canceled the last 2 days in 2011. So, and Andy, the typical male, forgot to introduce his lovely wife, Vicki. Okay, well, those are the 2 awards, and you've heard the brief summary of our study. I don't know whether Jared can stay around to answer more questions, but
Yeah, I have
about 20 minutes, okay. But I want to again thank you all for coming. Hope to see you all and more of you next year at our annual breakfast. And I bid you adieu. It's 9 o'clock. You're free to go.